Hi, I'm here with Sylvia Plath's Daddy today. Daddy is the most famous poem written by this poet, and maybe uh, she's known for some other poems, but she's identified with the poem Daddy among her readers. There are a couple of reasons for this. One of them is that she's written a poem just 2 months before her death. So the poem shows the darkest part of her life, maybe when she was so desperate and depressed. She had written this poem as a talking cure, to speak psychological in psychological terms. Or the other reason might be the tone and the language of the poem. The poem is written in a private, personal, confessional mode, so many of the readers can sympathize or identify with the contents of this poem. The poem is written in a simple language. She has used the pattern of a famous nursery rhyme, so that we can see the retrospection, the journey from her childhood to adulthood, as she had experienced the loss of her father. Before going to read the poem, let's read Sylvia Plath's comment on the poem. Here is a poem spoken by a girl with an electro complex. An electro complex happens when the girl is still in the phase of identifying with the father, and the figure of the father is by various means uh, just omitted from her life, so she could not go through the resolution of the complex in a phase to identify with the mother. The resolution of the electro complex therefore is the phase or the moment in which the girl can identify with the mother or the mother figure in Freudian terms, and we see this process as it is happening in the poem. So at first she starts with the suffering with the electric complex, but as we pass through the poem, she starts to identify with the mother, and therefore we see kind of uh, resolution, maybe belated resolution of the complex in her. Her father died while she thought he was God, so this is the climax of the electric complex. Her case is complicated by the fact that her father was also a Nazi. Actually, there are no evidences that her father was a Nazi, but she identified him with the Nazis and that spirit of fascism. So her father was never maybe actually fought for the Nazis, but she identifies his manners with those of a Nazi leader like Adolf Hitler. And her mother, very possibly Jewish. Anyway, her mother was maybe of some Jewish origins, but just consider the sensitivity of the times. So the Jewish families would not tell others that we were Jewish. That's why she's not uh, saying for certain that my mother was a Jewish. But anyway, not only she is suffering from an electoral complex, but also she's the offspring of such a marriage, the marriage of a Nazi and a Jew, and suppose that the child is a combination of the two, or she has to identify with either of them. In the daughter, the two strains marry and paralyze each other, of course. She has to act out the awful little allegory once over before she is free of it. So she narrates her story to us to cure herself, to release herself from this state of paralysis. And so the poem is the story of this resolution, of this kind of release and relief of the poet of this poem. And she starts with a very, very childish language. You do not do anymore. Black shoe. Throughout the poem, she uses different metaphors to refer to her father. One of them, or the first one, is the black shoe, a black shoe which is not a normal one. And just notice the colors. You do not do, you're not working anymore. Black shoe in which I have lived like a food for 30 years. Sylvia Plath was about 32 when she wrote this poem. Poor and white. While the father is a black shoe, she is poor and white, barely daring to breathe or chew. It seems that the father, this black shoe, has entangled her or so. tightened her character, that she could not breathe without difficulty, or she could not chew. She uses again a childish word. She means you know, sneezing. So she's intentionally studying the poem with the point of view and the language of a child. And as we move on throughout the text of the poem, this mode would change. But this is the first metaphor she uses. Daddy. She addresses the father many times in the poem. I have had to kill you. Kill you. The father was already dead, but his image or his figure was still alive in her mind and in her psyche. So she thinks that she has to kill the father figure who has paralyzed her or overshadowed the other aspects of her life. You died before I had time. So because you died before I had time to kill you, I am here supposed to kill you myself. And then we have another metaphor of the father, marble heavy. Now she thinks that her father is a statue made out of marble, but before uh, continuing to describe that statue, she calls her father a bag full of God. She has already told us that she considered the father as a god when he died. And a bag full of God can have two meanings. Maybe it is the image of the dead body of the father in the body bag, or she considers, his father the epitome, the embodiment of the God. Ghastly statue. So the father is a marble heavy ghastly statue with one great toe, but one great toe because his father died from diabetes. Actually, her father was a teacher of biology, and he had studied biology. So when he found some problems in his body, he diagnosed himself with cancer. But actually, he didn't suffer from cancer. It was diabetes. But he was so standoffish to accept that, okay, this is my disease. So he continued thinking that he has cancer, and he thought that this is terminal cancer. So he didn't go to a doctor. But finally, when the doctors could have access to him, they told him that it is just diabetes, but it's too late, and gangrene with had ruined his foot, so they were supposed to make his foot amputated. But anyway, Sylvia Plath was suffered that too before the death of the father, and she said, "I because my prayers didn't just work, and God didn't listen to them. I'll never speak to God again." And back to the statue and its image. So the father is a big statue, but this is not a normal statue. His foot is a great toe, big as a fresco sill, is on San Francisco. So he's like a statue with just let's say, laid down over the map of America. So she was a little girl, a girl of 8 years old, considers her country maybe as the biggest world or the world possible. So his father is as big as her world, as America. And now that he had laid down that he's just laid down over the ground, his foot is on San Francisco, while his head is located on the other side of the map of America in Massachusetts. So this is how she views his father, a bag full of God that who is as big as her world, and a head in the freakish Atlantic. So his toe is on on the Pacific Ocean, while his head is on the Atlantic, and a head in the freakish Atlantic, where it pours being green over blue in the waters of beautiful Nauset. I recommend you, if you have not, just listen to Sylvia Plath reading this poem herself. This is so beautiful and so touching. If you, if you, so if you want to see how the poet herself deals with this poem, how she goes through these sentences and lines. It's a very interesting experience. So the colors of the ocean in there are being green over blue, something like this. This is the beach of Nozad. So you see, she thinks that her father is as big as this, and you see there are some details. I used to pray to recover you, but we know that her prayers didn't actually work. Ach, du, and she in the first attempt in the poem starts to speak German with the father. Ach means oh, you. She tries to speak German with her father because it seems that the possibility of communication and conversation with the father is lost. So she thinks maybe it is because she cannot speak the real language of the father as his father spoke originally German. So she starts to speak German. So these are some of her attempts in the poem in which she wants to communicate or establish a dialogue with her father. And now let's go to the father. Now that she had spoken German, in the German tongue in the Polish town, this is the description of the father. His father was born actually in what is Poland today, but he spoke German. So he's a little bit difficult to originate, to tell others that where he came from was difficult because he was actually from Poland, but he spoke German. Scraped flat by the that Polish town, scraped flat by the roller of wars, 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 and by the repetition of the word wars, she means the repetition of the wars which had flattened this part of Poland. And as you can see in this map, Germany and Poland are neighbors, so it's natural maybe that in some borderlines, some people will speak the language of the other side. But the name of the town is common, but it's just a common experience. My Polak friend, Polak means so the Boers. Polak means a person who is of Polish descent, like her father, maybe. My Polak friend says there are a dozen or two Boers, so I never could tell where you put your root, because that city, that town is also ruined. I'm not sure what are your origins, and just notice the rhymes as I have underlined them. Put your food to your root. I never could talk to you. So two has rhymed with two U's, and instead of you and I, and because the topic is not is here not being able to talk, we see that the reason that she cannot talk with the father is that there is always the father, you ach du. So you can notice that the rhyme scheme of the poem is not just an accidental one. No rhymes are chosen accidentally by the poets. The tongue stuck in my jaw. So that it is you and you, so we can establish a dialogue. And when I want to talk to you, the tongue stuck in my jaw. It's as if my tongue cannot move in my jaw. So it is just you speaking. You see, this girl doesn't have a mouth, and it is intentional. It's stuck the tongue. It's stuck in a barbed wire snare. So when I want to talk with you, I cannot because my tongue is like in a mouse trap that I cannot move it. And then it is stuck on one word, ish. She cannot talk, and her father says ish, meaning I. It is always the father. So her identity is somehow lost. I could hardly speak. I thought every German was you. And now she says, I identify every German. with you, whether the Nazis, whether the good ones, the bad ones. And because you seem to be bad to me because you left me when I was so young. Okay, all the Germans are bad, bad, bad. And the language obscene. So I hate every German. I think you are all the Germans. You're a Nazi. Every German is a Nazi. And your language is an obscene one. It's disgusting. And now she brings forth another metaphor when she's disappointed in starting a dialogue with the father. She thinks about another alternative to identify with the mother. If every German is the father, and the Germans and her father was a Nazi, therefore all the Germans are Nazis. And if so, she's now a Jew who is paralyzed by the force of the Nazis. An engine, an engine is a train here. So in this part of the poem, she's trying to say that the metaphor is that I'm a Jew. She's metaphorically the Jew, and her father, the Nazis. So some critics have criticized this part of the poem. They say this is too much. She cannot identify herself with the Jews because her father was died when she was at a young age. But anyway, this is a poem. A Jew to Dachau, shoving me off like a Jew. So the train is moving uh, and taking me out to a Jew to Dachau, Auschwitz, Belsen. So being your daughter is like being in one of those concentration camps. And the experience resembles the experience of Holocaust. That's why they say that maybe she's overstated her condition. Anyway, I began to talk like a Jew. So I could not speak German. It was a failed attempt. I have only learned to tell ich. So as to utter ich. Oh, okay. I now start to speak in another language. I begin to talk like a Jew. I think I may well be a Jew. I have enough reasons to be a Jew because of my mother. And this picture shows one of the rare footages of Auschwitz, one of those concentration camps. And you see the last train station is in the camp. So when you're in the camp, there's no way out. The snows of the Tyrol, the clear beer of Vienna. Her mother was from Vienna, from Austria. So she's trying to identify with the mother figure. The snows of the Tyrol. Tyrol are the Austrian Alpine region. The clear beer of Vienna are not very pure or true. Not very pure or true because there are also Jews in the country of the German-speaking people. With my gypsy ancestress. Now, we are in the process of the resolution of that Electra complex. She identifies with the ancestress, and my weird luck, and my tarot pack. She means the tarot cards, because she's like a gypsy Jew. I may be a bit of a Jew. So she starts that process of identification with the mother figure. I have always been scared of you. So I'm a Jew. I'm scared of you with your, now as a Jewish, she's scared of the father with your Luftwaffe. Luftwaffe are the German Air Force. And when the German Air Force attacks somewhere, they called it the Luftwaffe. So the German Air Force is called Luftwaffe. So you're attacking me. It's a war with your Luftwaffe, your gobbledygook, your way of speaking, your incomprehensible German, and your neat mustache, neat mustache, as you can see here, like Hitler, and your Aryan eye, bright blue. Panzerman, Panzerman, oh, you. Panzerman was a person who fought in the German tank division. So the father is attacking her from the air and from the ground. So everywhere is the father and her attack. like a Nazi, and she's the Jew. Oh, you're no God. So now she's changing her terms, not God. At the beginning of the poem, she had called her father a sack, a bag full of God. Not God, but a swastika. No, you're not God. You're the embodiment of Nazism, of fascism. So black no sky could squeak through. You're so big and black that no light can just peep through it. Every woman adores a fascist. And what is the problem? That women adore these men. That women tend to love these men. Every woman adores a fascist, the boot in the face. So women, it seems that she says women show some love uh, towards these men, and they are attracted to such men. If you live the life of Adolf Hitler, you can also find many women in his life, the brute heart of a brute like you. So you see, the repetitions aren't just the childish language again. And she's the victim, like those other women, that she'd loved a despotic man. You stand out at the blackboard, Daddy. This is a reference to this photo. His father was a teacher. In the picture I have of you, a cleft in your chin instead of your foot. You see, uh, the devils have a cleft here in their foot. And she says you're a devil anyway, but the cleft instead of your foot is in your chin. It's in your chin. So it doesn't matter what appearance you have. You're a devil because you have the marker, you have the sign. Or a signature of being a devil, a cleft in your chin instead of your foot, but no less a devil for that. No, not any less. The black man who. So you're as this one is in your face instead of your foot, it doesn't make you less devilish. Any less the black man who bit my pretty red heart in two. So with that cleft in your chin, with that devilish force, with that evil, powerful presence, you have bet my pretty heart in two because of your untimely death. I was 10 when they buried you. At 20, I tried to die, and there are some mismatches of the ages in this poem. They are intentional. It seems that they are intentional so that we cannot identify the whole, they cannot totally identify the speaker with the figure of Sylvia Plath. I was 10 when they buried you. At 20, I tried to die. She had a suicide attempt, her first suicide attempt, and get back to you. I thought even the bones would do. So she attempted suicide because she thought that if she dies, she will turn back to the father, or she will have the opportunity to see the father in the other world. But they put me out of the sack and they stuck me together with glue. For 3 days, Sylvia was nowhere to be found. Finally, they found her at the basement of their own home. Her brother found her. She had taken uh, a lot of tablets, pills or something. And after 3 days, her brother found her and they just sent her to a hospital. But they pulled me out of the sack and they stuck me together with glue. And then I knew what to do. So if suicide was not uh, the uh, the solution to this problem, I did something else. I made a model of you, a man in black with a Mein Kampf look. So all throughout my life, I started to search a father figure like you or a man like you to replace your absence. A man in black with a Mein Kampf look. Mein Kampf, or my struggle, my battle, my campaign is Hitler's political autobiography. And she says that, okay, I started to search for another despotic man, for another ruler, a man with much power like you, and then she married to Ted Hughes. And a love of the rack and the screw. So I made it more complicated in a very masochistic way, I chose a sadistic person and a love of the rack and the screw. And I said, I do, I do. So with eagerness, I accepted the proposal, his marriage proposal. So, Daddy, I'm finally through, and now I'm released from you and your boundary because I have found another man like you. Actually, Sylvia Plath loved tattoos like a god, and she praised him, worshipped him like a god. She says, you know, Ted's voice is like the thunder of God. So this is how she worshipped that man. But Ted, when Sylvia was depressed, especially it was a postpartum depression, uh, he betrayed her and thus ruined Sylvia. She thought that she's through now, but she was wrong. The black telephone's off at the root. Now the father is a black telephone, and there is no connection anymore between the two. The voices just can't worm through. You cannot connect me anymore because I have another man like you. And now I have to kill that man too. If I've killed one man, I have killed two. No, I've not just killed you, father. I had to kill him. The vampire who said he was you and drank my blood for a year, 7 years, 7 years of marriage. If you want to know, Daddy, you can lie back now. Daddy, lie back quiet because there is another you just bothering me as you could do. So if she has replaced a vampire with another vampire, there is a stake in your fat black heart. If I kill Ted, I have killed you too. There is a stake in your fat black heart, and the villagers never liked you. This is a reference to the tradition of killing a vampire in the stories. They are dancing and stamping on you. They always knew it was you. I always knew in my heart, in my heart of heart, I knew that Ted is you. So when I killed that vampire, I have killed also you. They always knew it was you, Daddy, Daddy, you bastard. No, I'm through after killing you and your replacement. So this was the end of the poem, and you see at the end she calls her father a bastard because of all these. But she finds that kind of that emotion of relief that I'm now through because I'm free both from you and your Ted and your replacement Ted. Sylvia Plath had a very sad and sorrowful ending. She finally killed herself with gas. So just 2 months after writing this poem and after feeling that she is through. So thank you for listening, and I hope I can see you in my next video.